Hey, what is up, everybody? I am here to give you a video today. Kind of an unplanned video, even though I knew I was going to be doing this anyways. But before I do that, I have to give you some YouTube video recommendations to watch on YouTube. If you click about here, I want you guys to check out the Massasoit Wrestling Corner. It's just me and a bunch of my friends just sit and talk about wrestling, and we do it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it's really a fun thing to do. We're on like season 1 right now, which is really fun. And then if you click right here, you can check out the Weymouth Youth Wrestling YouTube channel. And one of my friends, James Hebert, who was on the Massasoit Wrestling Corner, has a bunch of Let's Plays that he has some Google Hangouts that I've appeared on, so I'd like you guys to check that out. And if you check down there, if you click right down there, I would like you guys to check out his other channel that's called James Hebert, and he has Titantrons that he's made of wrestlers. He said he's going to be coming out with a Cody Rhodes and a Ted DiBiase Jr. one, so that's going to be cool. Singly, they're not going to be together, so I think that's going to be cool to see. But now that I've gotten those plugs out of the way, let's talk about the topic that needs to be talked about. I want to talk about the Live with Jericho podcast that they did. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I think it's called Live with Jericho. Or Talk with Jericho, something like that. I'll put it in the title. And he had this yesterday, but I worked all day and I was way too tired to watch it because I had been doing homework, and it was pretty much like midnight, and I had just finished watching SmackDown, so I was way too tired to go watch it. So I figured I'd wait until now, and that's exactly what I did. And if you want to see other people cover it, you can click right on the Massasoit Wrestling Corner and go to like the latest episode down. And James and Draven talk about it. I had to leave because I hadn't seen it and I didn't want to be spoiled. So I am going to be covering it now. I thought the podcast was fine. I didn't really think it was that bad. It just kind of felt like that it was very scripted. It really did. It felt like it was scripted because I've listened to clips of his podcast, and he is totally different than he is when he's actually not on the WWE Network. That's just kind of how it is. Chris Jericho hosts this podcast, by the way. I didn't mention that, and he's had so many of them where he's just asked questions like with Drew McIntyre, with Rob Van Dam. You know, he's asked questions that we want to know. Like when Drew McIntyre got fired, he talked about why he was fired and how he got signed to TNA. Rob Van Dam, he talked about why he ended up leaving TNA. So, I don't know, it just wasn't... This one didn't have that. This was more of a reminiscent of the good old times. This was very, very scripted. It really was. This was not a podcast. This was a scripted... They even said Vince McMahon was watching, and I have a feeling Vince McMahon was in there watching, making sure Chris Jericho wasn't asking any suspicious questions. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And it's one thing that if they're reminiscing old times when he had John Cena on the show, but this is like the daughter of Vince McMahon, the CEO or something like that of the WWE. This is the person that's possibly going to be running the company after Vince McMahon dies with her husband, Triple H. And I'm saying dies because that's honestly what it's going to take for Vince McMahon to give up ownership of the WWE, by the way. And you would think you would want to ask like what a business philosophy is, because I really didn't get what her thinking of. Because with Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he had his podcast with Vince McMahon, you know that Vince McMahon is out of touch. He's beyond out of touch, and I covered that time in and time out. And with Triple H, you know that he's right spot on. He knows what he wants. I want to know what Stephanie's role is, and I don't know. This just did not exceed my expectations, but I'm going to cover it. It was a good podcast to listen to, but if I would recommend it, I probably would say it's a good listen, but it's not going to give you the answers that you would want. But I'm just going to kind of cover it. I'm not going to go over everything because I don't really want to. I'm not even going to go over it in order because I didn't write notes. She talked about her favorite match and moment was the match she had with Brie Bella at SummerSlam because she hadn't been wrestling actively in 11 years. And she said that it was a great moment for her. And afterwards, they had her kids, her 3 daughters. Channing Yu still got it backstage after the match, and it was just really good for her to have. And she also did say that she wishes that she could be she could have been an active wrestler a lot more. And they do reminisce in some of the stuff that Chris Jericho and Stephanie McMahon did when they were feuding. They talk about like the stuff with the gorillas. No, apes, not the gorilla. Same thing pretty much. But the apes, when they dumped cake right in Stephanie McMahon's face, when she got the boob job. And they made a lot of jokes about that. The segment with her, Shane McMahon, Booker T, Rhino, The Rock, and Chris Jericho, and they did a big segment, and Stephanie McMahon was supposed to cut off The Rock after all, at a certain point, but she didn't, so The Rock ended up saying it, because The Rock did not give her a chance to do that, and Vince McMahon freaked out. So they talked about that. What else did they talk about? They talked about how, something else, I don't remember what else, but they just pretty much talked about their past together, and how, Stephanie McMahon helped Chris Jericho out throughout his career. And they talk about Vince McMahon and his drive for the WWE. They talk about her job in the WWE and how she had summer jobs, working with the company. And she said she always wanted to work with the WWE. She loved the WWE. And she had odd jobs like answering the phones and all that. So that was all fine and good. I think we already knew that because of the Vince McMahon podcast. And if you don't know why Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't do the Vince podcast anymore, as I hear him and Vince McMahon aren't talking because of Vince McMahon doesn't like the way that his podcast is run, because that's the way a podcast should be run. I'm just saying. What else was good here? She talks about how the Be a Star campaign, the No Bullying campaign, and how everybody plays a character. And, she talks about that, talks about how Hulk Hogan was bullied, and it was kind of cool. And then she talks about how she was really close to Andre the Giant, and people treated Andre the Giant differently, just like people treated her differently, because people were emphatic that she was the daughter of Vince McMahon, but also how they hated her and discussed for her because she was like married to, because no one really got to know her as a person. They just assumed that she was going to be all stuck up and snobby just because she was Vince McMahon's daughter. She does talk about Shane McMahon. Talks about their past and how they used to always wrestle together, and Shane McMahon went to body slam her and she missed like the couch. He went to go from like one couch for the other. I thought that was kind of funny. She talks about, too, how they still have a relationship. They don't hang out as often. And they say that because we know Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon don't have a good, aren't talking really either. So, yeah. So then, they talk about the give Divas a chance thing. They say the same, she pretty much says the same thing about Triple H's philosophy. And that I've been saying, and that everybody's been saying, that Divas should be given more opportunities. And Vince McMahon, she says that he's going to do something about it, but Vince McMahon won't do anything about it, because Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn are running the company, and as long as they are running the company, the Divas won't be given a chance until Triple H, who takes the company seriously. They did talk about it, how Triple H takes the women wrestlers seriously on NXT, and it's just not going to work out. They even said that we're giving them longer matches, but that's not really helping. She does say it's not helping, too. They need proper storyline. But I have a feeling Vince McMahon thinks since he's out of touch. And Kevin Dunn. I wish James was here to do the Kevin Dunn impression. By the way, if you've seen the Massasoit Wrestling Corner, you know what I'm talking about. But Kevin Dunn probably think that just because they're getting longer matches means that we're gonna give him a chance. And Kevin Dunn can't book wrestling storylines to save his life. Pretty much, Kevin Dunn's the reason the WWE is gonna plummet. Yeah, that's kind of Kevin Dunn's the reason that things go on in life. By the way, too. So that's not gonna happen. And then she talked about the tweet with herself and AJ Lee, who's a retired wrestler now. I actually thought because she was after somebody won like in a Hollywood award that I didn't follow because I don't care. And Stephanie McMahon congratulated him because the person talked about how women are getting fairly equal pays as men, and Stephanie McMahon fully agreed with her. And AJ Lee says, "Well, we don't get the same proper pay that the men do in the WWE." And Stephanie McMahon called her out on it, but she recommended AJ Lee do it. And then she said that's kind of what really took the hashtag Give Divas a Chance by storm. They talk about how she was backstage once, and George the Animal Steel was like in character. This was when she was like 3 or 4 years old. And then she ran crying into Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon was laughing because George the Animal Steel felt bad that he scared her. I thought that was funny. They talk about the segment with herself, Triple H, The Rock, and Ronda Rousey at this year's WrestleMania 31, this year's WrestleMania. And they talk about how they had this all planned out because The Rock was doing Saturday Night Live like the night before. They flew him in to make sure they could get him here. And then they did the whole Ronda Rousey thing, and they thought that was cool. And they said that they're going to possibly do a Stephanie McMahon-Ronda Rousey match. And I think if they do that match, people are saying it's going to be at SummerSlam. I personally think it's going to be at WrestleMania 32 because of the way it looks like it's to be going. And it's a bigger draw at WrestleMania, I think, than at SummerSlam, even though SummerSlam is a big draw as well. I just think that WrestleMania is a bigger draw to do that match. So then, she talks about how Stephanie McMahon and Triple H actually don't see each other really that much throughout the week. Except for when they do the segments on Raw. And she talks about she actually does go home. I did not know that. She actually does go home, and Triple H stays on the road for Raw, and he does the NXT stuff. So there's that, and he talks about how he is a great father. We find out that one of Stephanie McMahon's oldest daughter wants to be a diva, which is going to be cool. That was really about it. I don't really think there's anything else I really need to mention. Like I said, this podcast was good, but this didn't. This was a very scripted podcast. I just think that Chris Jericho should have taken the chance and asked the hard questions, but he didn't do it. And it's because Vince McMahon does not understand how a podcast is run. You don't script a podcast. You come on here, you talk about the stuff without shooting. It's pretty much like making a YouTube video. That's pretty much what a podcast is. You don't have to plan it out. Some things you have to plan out on YouTube if you want to do things a certain way. We do that a little bit in the Massasoit Wrestling Corner, but in the end of the day, we barely even talk about the product itself until the wrestling show. Once we do the wrestling show, that's when we start talking. We do talk about other things, but this the podcast. You have to shoot the shit, get the stuff done, and yeah, I just don't really get why Vince McMahon thinks that scripted podcast is a good idea. Overall, that's my video. You can click the bottom right here to subscribe, and I'll be back at some point this weekend or next week to give you another video. I'm not really sure when, but that's pretty much it, guys. See you.